when people tell you that they prefer the separate and they just tell you like a text message you or call you?
Yeah, or told me in person or told my wife in person,
Oh, okay.
it's okay.
Okay. So it seems like that probably people prefer more like two separate sites. Okay. Oh, let's start our program today. Welcome.
Although everybody that spoke Chinese and English said your translation is perfect. You do a great job.
Thank you so much. I'm trying.
Because that way, when they're separate, they might forget what was said in
Uh,
one version or the other. But this way, it's right after I got done speaking in English, you translate it, and so they know if you did a good job or not.
they
And all
can
the reports were that you did great.
they can test me, right? Yeah. Sometimes, when you talk about something, there's a very exciting point, then you can just catch that. Yeah. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Science Forum. Today is December 23rd, and here's my dear friend, Tom. Tom, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm fine, and hope you are too.
Thank you so much. And the Christmas is at the corner. So, Merry Christmas, Tom, to you and your
Merry
family.
Christmas. And I almost got tongue-tied thinking of the other holiday. When I was in high school,
Uh-huh.
uh, maybe later, they came up with the American community came up with a holiday called Kwanzaa.
Oh, Kwanzaa?
Kwanzaa, starting with a K,
Uh-huh.
Wanzee. And anyway, so I see that on some calendars even today, Kwanzaa. It's like the
Wow.
day after Christmas or 2 days after Christmas.
Well, what's the meaning of Kwanzaa?
I don't know. It's
Oh,
some
so then we
some
can check
African
some African.
related holiday. I'm
We
not
can
quite
check
sure, and I'm
on.
not sure they're sure. I just wanted to have a different
I'll check
holiday.
on AI after that.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
okay.
所以今天呢，我们还是在做这个英文跟中文的一个尝试啊。那上次我们做了英文跟中文的呢，有一些朋友觉得很不错的，可是汤姆你说呢，有一些朋友还是觉得 separate 比较好，就是分开比较好。所以这样的话呢，那我们今天再试一次哈，就是中文跟英文合并的哈。那所以呢，也希望这个各位听众朋友呢，你们能够就给我们一个回复哈，留个 message，就是说你们喜欢这个中文英文分开的，还是说中文跟英文现在合起来这样的一个形式？好，所以今天呢，首先跟大家说 Merry Christmas 啊，圣诞节快乐！我们还2天就要过圣诞节了，那也非常感谢 Tom 在这个圣诞节前夕啊，来给我们做这样一个节目。那今天的节目呢，这个话题都非常有趣呢，有一些呢甚至非常重要，也是有些观众朋友他们想谈论的、想知道的话题，所以我们现在开始啊。So Tom, so first let us continue from where we left off last time, and discuss the threat at the Intifada that poses to global and American society. So I have one question before we start to discuss is when our enemies plan to attack the U.S., do they fear American retaliation? It might be more than they can handle. So
I think
that's
generally they look forward to the retaliation, and that's one of the things that motivates terrorists in the first place, and has been that way ever since, I've studied it over the last 40 years or 50 years, is that the terrorists hope for an excessive response by the authorities to build their case. They don't worry about getting caught or getting killed or the retaliation itself. They want that. And that's part of what terrorists are motivated by, is that if they commit an attack of some kind, even if they only kill one or two people, the authorities will overreact to it and help them build their followers. Because then they'll have an example of, look at that, look how evil the government is to overreact to that kind of terrorism. That's why
oh,
for years ago, 20, 30 years ago, in Israel, when Palestinians waged an attack, and in those cases, their philosophy was death by 1,000 cuts. So rather than some massive kill thousands of people at a time, many of the attacks were killing one or two at a time, waiting at a bus stop or waiting to go into a restaurant or something
mhm,
like that.
mhm.
And that's kind of what they looked at. The Israeli authorities took the philosophy that to not glorify the terrorists. So
Mhm,
oftentimes, if there was an attack on a bus stop
mhm,
and four, five, six people were gunned down while they were waiting on the side of the bus
mhm,
stop,
mhm,
the authorities, they would come out if that attack happened in the morning rush hour.
mhm.
They would come out, hose down the sidewalk, clean up any mess, and that bus would be operating for evening rush hour.
Ah, okay.
And in many cases, like in the US and other countries, attack like that, the bus line would shut down for days, and
I see.
it would be a spectacular story and get all kinds of attention. And the Israelis looked at it like, no, we're not going to give them any extra attention.
I
We're
see.
we're going to show that it didn't do anything to us, and
Okay.
we're going to move on and keep on operating.
Sure, sure, thank you。哎呀，所以第一个问题就是接着上一次的问题啊，就是他们就是说，有一个可能会蔓延全球的一个恐怖主义活动哈，就是针对美国和一些西方国家，所以我就问他，如果这些恐怖分子他们在计划这些行动的时候，他们难道不害怕这样的一个来自美国的或者来自其他国家一个极其猛烈的报复吗？他们为什么敢？那他们的回答呢很有意思啊，他说实际上他们就寻求这样的一个报复，那这个报复呢帮助他们建立一个叙事，就是说你看这个西方人有多么的这个残酷，或者美国人有多么的残酷，对我们进行这个大规模的绞杀。另外呢，也树立他们的一个英雄的形象，这就是恐怖主义的这个意义就在这个地方。对于实施恐怖的这一些就是实施者来说，就比如说对这个就是伊斯兰国的人，他是怎么来理解这个问题的？所以他不怕你的报复，他要的就是你的报复。建立他的叙事，另外呢，来吸引他的一个跟随者，所以他就提到这个以色列如何来处理这样的一个恐怖袭击的一个问题啊。他说以色列就比如说在这个以色列的一个车站，大家还记得很多年以前哈，就是这个情形已经是20-30年以前就是这样。比如他们袭击了一个以色列的一个车站，就打死了5-6个人哈。那以色列的做法就是说，他会把这个车站整个全部清理。比如早晨的一辆一个班车上被打死了6-7个人，以色列就是当局立刻去清理，非常快的速度，清理完了之后，同样的这个车在晚上又出现在它该出现的站台、该出现的这个线路上。所以以色列当局在就是跟恐怖做斗争的时候呢，他们建立一个 routine 哈，建立一个方式，就是绝不要让这些恐怖分子得逞，这是一种心理上的东西，就是说让它影响到你的生活，让你整个的城市所有的人都陷入这个悲痛和慌乱中。No，你的恐怖袭击完全影响不了我的正常生活，他就是把恐怖袭击的所造成的影响给它限定在一个最小的范围，所以恐怖分子的这种所谓恐怖的这样的一个气息散发不出去，所以它压制住它这样的一个信息。这个非常 very interesting, very very yeah, you know what? It's really thoughtful, because it's a psychological battle.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah，
Well,
所
the
以
idea of terrorism is to make a psychological attack. The idea is to do an attack in such a way that it's designed to change the public opinion of
right,
what the government is doing
mhm,
and and change policy.
right,
So it's the use of violence or threat of violence
mhm,
to actually get policies to be changed. So
right,
what Israel at the time, their philosophy at the time during that intifada, when
mhm,
when the term was originally coined,
mhm,
the idea was you're not going to intimidate us. We're not going to change. The people aren't going to be persuaded or intimidated into changing policies or making the government change. You
mhm,
can't hurt us. And
mhm.
that was the idea is that you're not so tough and you're not going to affect what we do or how we do it.
Right, right. It's like there is a Chinese saying that if two strong men compete, the braver are the winner. So you attack me, I'm stronger. I will not defeat by you.
Right.
So that's yeah，所以我就是说这是一种心理战哈。那他们就说对，这完全它是一种就是恐怖袭击的一个心理战。实际上它就是要改变你的生活，然后 改变大众对于这个政府的看法，那最重要他是要改变一些这个 policy，就是这些政策，这是他想施加的一个影响。那他就说那以色列的一个哲学就是说，我不让你来影响我的生活、我的秩序、我的法律、我的规则。那就是我就说，这就是中国人讲的两强相争，勇者胜，就是你比他更加的坚定，更加的勇敢，更加的不受他的影响。所以 it seems like Israel way is a good way, it's a right way, or at least they survived.
Well, not always, but in some situations, yeah. Now, at the time, you
Hmm.
know, 20, 30 years ago, when the Palestinians started to revolt against Israel and do these attacks in bus stations or small restaurants or wherever, uh, they used the term intifada. Intifada meant rebellion or resistance or battle, against the authorities.
Hmm.
Now, what's happened now is that anti-Semitism has really spread globally, including
Hmm.
in the United States. We just saw the attack in Australia over a week ago. And the idea now, what they're saying is just isn't a resistance against Israeli Jews in Israel. That's why they coined the term global intifada, meaning Jews everywhere.
嗯
We're going to kill Jews everywhere, whether it's in the US or,
嗯
other countries in Europe or in Australia. That's what the battle is. So that's why they coined the term global intifada, that we're not going to be limited to just attacks in Israel. It's global now. Wherever Jews might be, they're
嗯。
in danger.
Sure, sure. Yeah, 所以我们 yeah, before we go further, I'll translate that this part in, which is very important, and then we probably can go back for the reason of yeah, the situation right now. Why the whole situation seems like a little bit changed. Yeah, so 我就是讲说，那也就是说，以色列对付他们这样的一个心理战哈，这个恐怖心理战看来还是蛮有效的啊。但他说也不完全是哈，也不是每一次都是这样。但是不过怎么样不管怎么样呢，这是大概30年前左右他们开始做的这个 Intifada。但那个时候的 Intifada 呢，它基本上就是在以色列的火车站啊、车站啊，或者一个小餐馆啊，搞一些这个爆炸活动哈，就是随处可见的这样的一个恐怖袭击。那当然以色列是采取这样的一个行动，但是现在呢，他们开始发展的，就是我们今天谈的重点啊，叫做 global intifada，就是全球性的这样的一个恐怖袭击的活动。那之前呢是在以色列当地的这些人做这样的一个动作，那现在呢，他似乎这个活动啊是推向全球。那非常明显的一个例子就是澳大利亚的邦迪海滩的这样一个枪杀。实际上，它是配合到现在的一个所谓的反犹的一个全球的一个思潮。那它的针对呢是全球各地有以色列，就是有犹太人的一个地方。所以这个整个的趋势是扩大化的。这个就很明显。所以我们现在要讨论一下哈，就是这个。现在为什么情形改变成这样？So Tom, I just wonder. You said that situation now is a little bit changed. It's become from the Israel Intifada to global Intifada, and it's cooperate with anti what's the word against the Jewish people. There are like
Anti-Semitism.
anti-Semitism. Yeah, right. Thank you. So how that happened? Why that happened? What's your opinion?
Well, I think that you know, right now because of what's gone on in Gaza now for the last couple of years
Mhm.
with since the October attack 2 years ago
Mhm.
uh, across the border with Gaza and Israel, I
Mhm.
think that that the rebellion basically has people following it and saying, yeah, this is not right. What Israel has been doing in Gaza
Mhm.
to wipe out the Palestinian population or their ability to function
Mhm.
um, is so evil that we're going to attack them everywhere, not just in Israel, but in Western countries. And
Mhm.
that's why you've seen attacks, especially the most recent one on Bondi Beach in Tasmania, Australia,
Right.
where Israelis were, having a celebration. Jewish population was having a celebration,
Mhm.
and these two guys disrupted it by killing many of them.
Right, right。所以他的我就问这个汤姆，就说这个反犹，目前好像全世界的一种就是反犹太，是怎么开始就是忽然发展起来的？那他们的看法就是，它主要是跟这个就是加沙的这个事情，就10月7号哈的这个事件有关。那之后就是以色列和加沙这个就是轰炸这个加沙哈。那原来呢，这个 Anti-Fatah 呢是一种就是在巴勒斯坦人看来，它是一种就是反抗，是一种报复哈这样的一个动作。那现在呢，这个就扩展成全球范围内对所有的以色列犹太人的一个反抗，一个报复这样的一个行动。所以呢，这是目前哈，他认为这个反犹的所谓的一个浪潮在全世界蔓延的一个主要的动因是10月7号，后来这个加沙整个地方的这样的一个事件。So right now, American has our plan to deal with Gaza situation. So what do you think about the plan? Do you think it's a at least temporarily a peace plan between them?
I think possibly, but it's going to take other countries responding also
Mhm.
to help rebuild Gaza, rebuild, you know, the infrastructure there on
Mhm.
behalf of the Palestinian people. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be successful or not.
Mhm. So we'll see. And
Nothing else has worked for decades, so we'll see what happens. But the Israelis have destroyed a lot of property and people in
Mhm.
Gaza, and at what point that stops and rebuilding starts, I don't
Right,
know.
right, right. You're right. So as American, what can we do to handle the situation, especially regarding the global and antifata thing? What's your suggestion?
Well, it's like what we always do is supply money to the countries to defend themselves and to share intelligence so that it doesn't continue, doesn't. But again, it only, the Australia attack shows two guys with rifles in a country that has very strict gun control. We started talking about this a couple of weeks ago,
Hmm.
that this began in Australia several years ago, 1996, with an
Hmm.
attack on Port Arthur, Australia, which was like a resort area,
Hmm.
and a number of people were killed. And Australia immediately changed its gun policy afterward
Hmm.
to basically do a turn in your gun and we'll pay you policy.
Hmm.
And hundreds of thousands of weapons were turned in, and they made it very difficult
Hmm.
to possess
Hmm.
a long rifle or an assault rifle. And then they went through different efforts to define assault rifle, like we've tried to do here over the years.
Hmm.
And the idea was that it became much more difficult for anybody to justify having that kind of weapon. Now,
Right.
maybe if they were on a ranch in the outback and they had wild animals to contend with,
Hmm.
that would be one thing. But
Hmm.
somebody living in an urban area basically could not justify having a weapon that was easily fired, easily reloaded,
Hmm.
semi-automatic, had all the characteristics
Sure.
that we use to define an assault rifle. So
Hmm.
that's what Australia's policy has been now since the 90s.
Hmm.
And, the idea that all of a sudden these two individuals who are backers of ISIS,
Hmm.
rise up and have long guns and start shooting people,
Hmm.
kind of a big surprise to everybody in Australia and
Hmm.
obviously in the Jewish community where the attack took place.
Hmm.
Uh, as they were trying to celebrate it. Now, one of the things that's come up in the exchange of intelligence has been that ISIS has a major encampment in the Philippines. And that these two guys had gone there apparently, and many anti-Jewish people have gone to train with ISIS in the Philippines on this
Oh.
remote location. So that's kind of a new surprise. Now, what will happen with that?
Mm,
Again, we'll have to see.
okay.
Will
Yeah.
the U.S. or Australia or the Philippines themselves attack the ISIS encampment on that island in the Philippines?
Well, so it really is a global business. It's not only within a country.
No, exactly, and that's why they coined the phrase "global intifada."
Right,
That
right.
the Jewish population is not going to be safe, not in Israel, not in the United States, but anywhere, anywhere. And if they gather to celebrate a Jewish holiday or series of holidays, they're going to get attacked, possibly, that
Yeah.
they're going to be vulnerable to attack.
Well, it's terrible because before their wool is within the country, their countries, right? And right
Yeah.
now it's on the whole world. So it's only limited to the Jewish people be killed or be hurt.
Well, back around the time of 9/11, the groups like Al Qaeda professed hatred of the United States or the
Mm,
Western countries.
mm,
So they made no qualms about the fact that their attack on 9/11 was going to be against the United States.
mhm, mm,
And now what you have is attacks that it doesn't matter if it's the United States or Australia or France or wherever,
mhm.
if there's Jewish people gathering to
Mhm.
celebrate a Jewish holiday, they're vulnerable. And
Right.
now you have other countries that have given into that. For
Mm,
example, Paris, France, canceling their New Year's celebrations because of
right,
fear of attack by terrorists.
right,
So it's
right.
had the idea of intifada intimidating governments, intimidating Jewish populations. We see evidence of that, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, well, so yeah, talk about Paris, the psychological wall, Intifada when they cancel the celebrations, right? All
Right,
right.
exactly.
我要翻译一下他这个非常很重要的一个看法啊，就是那我就问他说，现在 Antifada 的这样的一个恐怖袭击哈，它可能已经在全世界各地，那各国怎么样防范？那他们的意思就是说，那你除了就是加强这个安保，加强这个信息的交流的这种速度和强度。基本上就只有这个办法来防范它。那就是说呢，它现在已经跨过这个国的范围。那之前的 Intifada，它只是在以色列跟巴勒斯坦人之间。那它现在呢，就是全世界任何地方，的主要是西方国家，你只要有这个犹太人的聚集，就有可能成为他的攻击对象。那当他攻击的时候呢，周围不可能仅仅是犹太人，所以其他人都有危险。那他谈到这个澳大利亚，就说这个悉尼海滩的这个杀人的这个事件啊，这两个人他们拿的这个枪是在澳大利亚是严格禁止的一个枪。他们怎么拿到的？哈，这个我们按下不表。先讲他谈了一段，就是1996年的时候，在澳大利亚一个 resort 发生了一个枪击的案件。那在那个案件之后，澳大利亚政府呢就立刻有一个枪支管理的这样的新的政策。那意思就是说呢，你把你的这种像长的这种比较火力比较大的枪哈，就是交出来呢，那政府会给你钱。所以实际上呢，就让这个人们把就是重型武器拿出来交械哈。那是为了一个公众安全的考虑，当时。那现在呢，发生的这个悉尼海滩的事件，他们仍然得到了这个枪。那这些枪是怎么得到的呢？现在的一个调查结果呢，就是说这两个人有可能是到了这个 ISIS 伊斯兰国在菲律宾的一个训练的地方。那个地方呢，提供枪支，提供这个军事的一个训练，所以他们两个在作案之前跑到菲律宾 IS 的基地去进行了训练，拿到了这个枪支。那所以这个反恐的这个情况啊，现在它不是局限在一个国家的范围内，它其实是一个全世界的范围。所以为什么说自己叫做全球的 Intifada 的一个状态？那也谈到说，那现在就是。西方各国有犹太人聚集的地方都不安全了。那这样的话呢，就像巴黎，取消了，就是 New Year's Eve，就是圣诞夜的一个庆典。那他就是因为怕这个被袭击。那从这个角度上来讲，那这个恐怖袭击的心理战他就赢了，至少在巴黎，在马克龙政府下他赢了。所以现在就是这样的一个局面。All right. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for the great information and for just mention that the retaliation is something they are looking for. This is really Yeah. And so talk about a case, the Brown University case and MIT professor's case. The suspect in these two cases is dead. And now he's also said to be, he's the killer of the professor. Now, we may never know that he's a true motivation for the murders. We will have no chance to know what's behind his mind, why he did that. But what are your thought of these two cases? One suspect, two cases, three people die. What do you think about this case?
I think that the fact that he killed himself and was not able to be interrogated afterward or that information put together, especially the amount of investigation that would go into preparing to prosecute him as well, that's leaving a huge hole in the amount of information we have about why he was motivated. And the whole case to me, in a way, is unbelievable. That you have Brown University, one of the richest schools in the country with a huge multi-billion-dollar endowment,
Mhm,
and it's very left wing, very progressive, very DEI.
mhm,
And when you look at, going back to the original press conferences the day of the event,
mhm,
I watched that almost in horror of how could they get so many stupid people in one room to go to the podium on behalf of Brown University or on behalf of Providence, Rhode Island. It was unbelievable to me. And it was in a way DEI, on display,
mhm.
including the chief of police. Now
Oh,
here he's trying to provide information. He doesn't know information. I couldn't believe that even within 2, 3, 4 hours after the killing of the two students, he had no real answers. How many were in that room? How did it occur? What was the breach in security? All the different questions that came
mhm,
up,
mhm,
he should have had those answers in about the first 10 minutes of the investigation. Who was involved? How many people? How many victims? How big was the room? How many students in that room?
mhm,
Where was campus security? Why wasn't somebody there? Does does the campus have alarms or cameras or anything on,
mhm,
especially that entrance to that part of the campus was
mhm,
right on the border. So you had, the town, let's say, of Providence across the street. So they
mhm,
should have absolutely had cameras on those doors that showed the doors, the entryway, the sidewalks, all the way to across the street. And, just a tremendous lack of information.
mhm.
And, one of the things, not to be, you know, racist or
Yeah,
anti-Hispanic or anything,
right.
but when you appoint someone to be the chief of police in your school or,
Mhm.
in your town or city, that person has to have a reasonably uh,
Yeah,
skilled ability to
right.
conduct a press conference, to notify the public of what's occurring.
Exactly.
And from the time that chief opened his mouth, the fact that he was so inarticulate, I just thought that's not a good selection to be your chief of police and be the spokesman when a tragedy happens. And I think it's almost like these entities, government agencies that think, oh, that big event isn't going to happen here. We don't need a chief of police to be articulate or knowledgeable or skilled. And you find out that his experience level was in media or some other, it was not in actually conducting investigations or
Mhm,
solving major cases or responding to a crisis
mhm,
or using tactical resources, any of that. And
mhm,
I thought that, the fact that they would put somebody with so few skills in that position with the
mhm,
idea that, well, that bad stuff that happens around the country, it won't happen here because we're rich and we're educated and we have knowledgeable, authorities and administrators and teachers and mayors and everything. And with the exception of the prosecutor, the attorney general, when he
mhm,
went to the microphone, he was skilled. But almost anybody else that spoke, whether it was the mayor
hmm
or the chief of police or the president of the university, when she spoke, they all sounded like idiots to me.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I don't think it's a discrimination or anything. You just simply state the facts, which I have the same opinion and same feeling about that. Um, so you don't think that the guy is that? Let me translate that part first. 首先就是我刚问这个 Tom，我们谈到另外一个话题，就是关于布朗大学的这个谋杀案以及 MIT 的这个教授的谋杀案。那现在的结论呢，就是说这两个案子是一个人做的，那这个人已经死掉了。那所以在这个情况下，那可能我们永远也没有，如果这个案子真是这个人做的话，我们永远不可能知道他真正的这样一个原因要做这个案子啊。那我就请教 Tom 对这个事情的看法。那 Tom 就说他自己是觉得很难以置信这个事情，因为你已经没有任何可能性从这个人口中得到他为什么要去做这个案子的一个真正的一个动机。那另外更重要的就是说，他们谈到就是布朗大学这个谋杀案整个的这个侦破过程，他的校长、他的警长、他的市长表现出来的一个整个就是呆若木鸡，整个就是对，就是这样的一个管理哈，不管他是管理这个学校，当然也是包括学校的一个安全哈，重要的一个因素。那还是说你作为一个警长，对于警务工作，对于这种侦破工作的一个反应速度，你的这个就是执行能力啊，你跟这个记者在就是举行招待会的这样的一个控场能力，可以说是都不具备一个就是一个及格的要求。那他们就说有可能他们是觉得很自己的这个地方不会发生这样严重的事情，所以他们就可以用一些不是合乎条件的人到这样的一个重要的岗位。还是什么样的一个理由？那以 Tom 他这个作为一生的这个司法人员来看，他特别批评这个警长，认为他是完全不合格的哈。因为这个案子发生了3、4个小时之后，他居然在记者招待会上也不知道这个教室里面大概有多少人，教室里面是个什么情况。另外，整个的这个校园的一个 camera，就是录像哈摄像的这些条件或这些摄像头都完全不到位，这是不可以接受的一个情况。所以，那 Tom 就说，对这个看法是，就觉得完全没有办法接受，这是一个 DEI 的成果哈。所以 DEI 的成果就是他不是用这个人是否符合他的整个的质量、整个的能力符合这个位置来确定什么样的人在什么位置，而是说他是少数族裔，他是女的，他是黑人，他是等等等等，用这样其他的一些因素来选人的一个非常清楚的一个展示。他说整个这个活动当中，他就只有他这个总检察长还可以在记者招待会上，他知道怎么样去面对媒体，怎么样来说话，其他的根本是不具备这个条件的。And there's new information regarding this case, Brown case. A guy, he's from Brown, and he said he noticed that suspect 3 times around the building at different time. So he just felt that guy is very weird. He reported to the college and said that we need to pay attention. We need to have more like a security details and everything. No response at all.
Right.
And I just learned that the salary of the president of Brown University. Do you know the salary?
I heard it, but
You heard
a
that, right?
huge amount.
3.2 million.
Right.
And she knows nothing about this. So
Yeah.
I think at least she needs to resign.
Yeah. She's your classic DEI hire. You know, a woman with the right kind of degrees and all of that, but no real practical experience to run a major institution.
Mhm,
And in this situation, showing her limitations. It's like everybody in authority, like I
mhm,
said, with the exception of the attorney general, but
mhm.
of the state, but everybody else that spoke really showed their limitations. And I can
Right.
give you the reason why I'm so critical is that, I grew up and I speak Spanish a fair
Mhm,
amount, but
mhm.
not a great amount.
Hmm.
And so I can travel in Spanish speaking countries and go to restaurants and have conversations with my grandmother at the time and others.
Hmm.
But when I became an FBI executive, I had many Spanish speaking TV or radio or newspapers that wanted to interview me in
Hmm.
Spanish. I
Hmm.
said, no, I'm not skilled enough and I don't want to make a mistake because in the diplomatic arena, it might be important
Right,
and it might have consequences, let's say,
right.
of my not being skilled enough to use
Hmm.
Spanish to conduct official business.
Hmm. Great, great. And then the guy at Brown University, he actually speaks Spanish at the conference. Remember that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really surprised, and then yeah, about his language. So, yeah,我就跟 Tom 就继续在谈论这个问题啊。Tom 就说，他说我之所以这么来批评这样的一个事情就在这之前呢，我就谈到一个新的一个线索，就是说布朗大学内部的人，他们曾经发现了这个凶手3次，至少是就在那个教学楼周围在看。那当时呢，他的这个行动就引起了这个学校的这个人的注意啊。那他呢就 report 就是报告了学校，就说好像有人很奇怪在那个教学楼看来看去，是不是需要去查一查，或者是管一管？那学校方面没有任何的回应，那之后就发生了这个惨剧。那所以我就谈到这个校长哈，他是拿着极高的薪水，但是对于这个学校的管理可以说是一塌糊涂。因为一个例子，他在这个记者会上6个小时之后，他居然不知道那个教室里面是些什么人，什么课他都不知道。所以呢，就是那我们就说这个校长是他的薪水哈，披露出来的是310万美元，310万美元一年哈。那Tom 就说这个典型的就是一个 DEI 的雇员，她是个女的，或者她达到了一些什么 DEI 的要求。那实际上她作为一个大学校长，很明显是不合格的。那这个警长也是很明显是不合格的，因为他就是他用这个西班牙语在那个记者会上讲话哈，他的英文里面有非常浓的这个西班牙口音，这个不是说这个就是 discrimination，不是说歧视，而是说语言是极其重要的一个事情。那 Tom 就谈到了，就是我为什么会这样批评这个事情啊？因为 Tom 呢，他的这个祖籍也是这个西班牙，所以他可以讲一点西班牙语，所以他以前还是跟他的 grandma 可以去用一些西班牙语对话。那可是他到了这个 FBI 之后，那有一些西班牙的，就是说西班牙语的电台啊，或者是就是电视台想去采访他，要用西班牙语采访他，那Tom 是坚决就拒绝的。他说，我的西班牙语不够那么好，那我一定要用这个英语来回答问题，因为你这个语义上的一点点的差池，就可能引起很大的对这个政策的理解或者对事情的理解的一个误差。也就是说，我们谈到了一个在这个美国这个高级公务活动当中这个语言的重要性。所以 one thing I like to mention that a mayor in Massachusetts, Lawrence, city of Lawrence, his mayor cannot speak English very well. So when he go to the court, he needs to have a translator, interpreter to go with him. And then he speaks, I think he speaks Spanish, I guess. Yeah, but he immigrated to American at 1980s, 40 plus years. He don't speak English and he become a mayor. His reason is in my population, the city, 80% people speak Spanish. So I probably don't need to speak English to become a mayor. So this is what happened in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah，所以我就举了一个例子，就马萨诸塞州有一个市叫 Lawrence 市，他的市长居然不会讲英语，这之后这个市长上庭还要找一个英文的翻译来给他翻译。And the thing is, in the court, there's nobody can speak Spanish. So if the translator doing her job good, nobody knows. It is in the court. So
Right.
anyway, yeah. So
Yeah,
this
that's
is
incredible. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so the last question today, Tom, is about the 2020 election. So President Trump saying that we have truckloads of the evidence of the 2020 election. He said we have all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It come out in truckloads. And now DOJ is also suing Fulton County for the record. And Georgia has now disclosed that 350,000 invalid ballots were counted in 2020 election, and Biden won the state by margin of less than 20,000.
11,000.
11,000, yeah.
Right.
So how do you anticipate the case will proceed? So my question
Well,
is
in a way, the case, is not going to proceed as far as it's not going to change the election, and
right, right,
uh,
right.
they're not going to suddenly declare that Trump actually won it,
Of course,
won the
yeah.
state, won Georgia.
Uh-huh.
Um, and all of the, I guess, the shenanigans of the prosecutor's office in this case, the lies
Mhm.
about this, that, you know, at least later, Trump wins the next election, I guess 2024, but in 2020, at that time, he's being prosecuted and others were prosecuted because he questioned it. Wait a minute, where'd you come up with that number?
Right,
Because he
right,
was winning by so much, and then all of a sudden overnight he loses.
right.
And the mere asking of the question, which was his right to do, is what led him to being charged, and they're going to prosecute him and all of that, which was absurd. And I think we've seen now at the time, but now in hindsight, that the charges that they came up with against Trump were just so ridiculous and unfounded,
Mm-hmm.
and what Trump was saying was legitimate. Tell me where those votes came from,
Right,
and so they prosecuted for that. And I think in the long run, justice has prevailed, but look what it took. And look at the toll it took on President Trump himself to go
right,
through all that,
right,
and the toll it took on the country to end up with President Biden,
right,
and the catastrophe that resulted from that, economically, militarily, culturally, you name it,
right.
uh, that it was a disaster. Now, the only good thing for Trump is that it's shown now the contrast between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, and showing how bad Biden was.
Mm-hmm.
So showing that when Trump has made statements that Biden will go down in history as the worst president in the history of the country,
Mm-hmm.
I think people now are looking at, yeah, that looks like true. It looks
Right,
like that's a fact.
right. Yeah, you're right. And also, my question is anyone can be arrested or at least prosecuted. So who gonna be? We need to put someone in the jail for that, right?
Well, I think that's a separate criticism now
Uh-huh.
of Attorney General Bondi in the Justice Department, that why is it as of now nobody's been even indicted and charged or arrested or taken away in handcuffs or any of that?
Yeah,
And that's a good question.
yeah, right. Well, OK, yeah, let me translate this part. So 我们现在谈到就是下一个问题哈，就是我今天大概最后面的几个问题就是关于2020大选舞弊的问题。那现在呢，首先川普总统说我们有非常多的哈，像这个非常非常多的这个证据啊，说明2020大选是被盗的哈。川普说我们会把这个证据拿出来。那现在呢，这个司法部也在诉这个。Fulton County 在乔治亚的，让他们把这个记录给拿出来。那另外呢，乔治亚州呢也发现在2020大选当中有35万张根本不合格的票。那所谓不合格，就是要不然没有签名，要不然就是他不合格的哈。这些选票居然被计入了这个大选的计票里边。那乔治亚州大家不要忘记了，所谓拜登赢川普只有11000票。那这个情况，这个案子会怎么样往下进行？那他们说，首先这个案子当然他不会说来忽然翻案说哦，实际上2020大选是川普赢了哈，可能不会有这个结果。那另外呢，当时就是川普是被他们 charge 了很多的这个罪名，大家还记得93项罪名，就是在2020年的时候，而且后来川普总统在对乔治亚州的结果提出疑问，说这我们大幅领先，怎么一下落后了？就因为这个，他们还要 charge 川普，就是说挑战这个结果。那当然，现在这个案子已经被就是踢掉了哈，这个案子没有了。那当然这是一个很荒唐的一个指控。那现在呢，就是说接下来我就是 我们看到了这个拜登的当选，那我们也看到了拜登这个当选之后，对于美国所带来的这样一个伤害。那他们的意思就是说，这个实在也是让就是Tom 就是川普当时在说，如果拜登当选，这个国家会出现这个灾难。那现在呢，拜登就是2020拜登果然当选了，那么这么4年下来，那国家付出了多大的这个代价？那这个其实也是让人们来看到，就是大选被盗的一个真实的结果。那接下来呢，我就问他们，就说那现在这些参与大选舞弊的人，为什么到现在还没有？有没有人被抓起来？我们需要看到，你既然是参加了这样的一个阴谋的活动，那你当然是要应该受到起诉，最后要被判入监的哈。那他们说的这就是另外的，大家现在很多的一个问题。那为什么现在司法部到一个人都没有抓？这确实是一个问题哈。So this is my last question regarding the DOJ. I'm so glad and appreciate you mentioned that. So DOJ has begun suing the states that refuse to hand over and reorganize the voter rolls. So far, Republican states has agreed to cooperate. We have 10 states to cooperate. So the question is, what the federal government can do to the states that refuse to comply with the orders? What can we do? What can the federal
Well,
do?
constitutionally, that's a good question because, the Constitution specifies that the states will run the elections, not the federal government.
Right.
So, the states may take the position, the ones that don't want to cooperate, and just say, how we conduct these elections is our business and our duty and our responsibility and our authority.
Right.
Stay out of it. So
What
we'll
can we
see.
do?
I could foresee a number of cases going in front of judges, and some judges will rule in favor of the Department of Justice at this point under President Trump's control,
Mhm.
and some will, side with the Democrats. So we'll see. We'll see what comes from that.
Yeah, another question is even the judge favor in DOJ and ask the state to hand over the name list. They still refuse to do that. What can we do?
Well, all they can do is take them to court, and eventually those cases will probably end up in the Supreme Court. Uh, to say what authority does DOJ have
Hmm.
to tell the states anything of what they have to do.
Okay.
Now,
Uh,
where it comes up, where the possibility can come up is through the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division.
right,
Harmeet Dillon is the assistant attorney general running that division,
right.
and saying that if the states do various decisions that the states make could be denying the civil liberties of citizens by what they do, and maybe try that way to attack
Hmm.
these states into doing what they want them to do.
Okay, so it seems like well, this is a way that within the law and order, it seems like the Democrats don't care about law and order, just like Newsom. Even though the Supreme Court said, okay, you should give the federal the name list, and he said, okay, I'll give it, but he gave a lots of excuse and don't do that. What can the Supreme Court do? What can the federal do? Do we have force to do that, or what can we do?
Well, the Supreme Court issues decisions that favor DOJ in this
Right.
case. Then
Uh-huh.
you could have the Trump administration then start to punish the states if they don't comply financially or
Okay.
by other means. So I think there's a lot of I guess indecision, let's say, on the part of the governments, state and federal, on how they're going to treat this down the road.
Right. So it's going to be a long shot, right? It
I
won't
think
be a
so.
quick
Yeah.
case. Yeah. So do you think it will have any positive effect for the 2026 midterm election? What do you think?
I think so. I think it'll help the Trump administration if the states don't comply when
Mhm.
Supreme Court tells them that they should. So I think that that'll create a constitutional crisis, as they say. But in this case, you'll have the Trump administration will be on the high road.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is what we there are so many audience who wants to know the answer, and then we know that 20 what happened in 2020, and we do not want to see that happen again in 2026, which is
Right.
so important to Trump administration and to the conservatives and to real American people. And thank you
Agreed.
so much for your answer. For my audience in Chinese, I will translate that part and I will let Tom go because it's almost 1 hour. So I'll stay here to translate into Chinese. And then, yeah, let me,
I'll stay in case
you
there was
sure?
another question before you finish. So,
Okay, thank you so much. Let me see if our audience have some questions regarding um, let's see. Oh, Merry Christmas. They say hi to you, Tom. Merry Christmas. You say
Merry,
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Joy and Tom. Your bilingual English Chinese podcast is truly the best, informative, accessible, and so thoughtfully down. Oh, thank you so much. And so thank you. And then yeah, so thank you, Tom, for staying with me. So I'll translate the last part that we just discussed. 所以我就问 Tom 嘛，就是说现在 DOJ 呢，他去就是诉所有的这些不愿意交出他们的选民名册的州因为DOJ 他就是有这个权利来要求每个州提供选民名册，并且你要清理你的选民名册，因为我们是发现很多就根本就没有选民资格的，或者是已经死了的人在选民名册里面，这是不可以的，所以联邦在要求这件事情。但是呢，有一些州，当然民主党的州不愿意去配合，不愿意清理，也不愿意去交出好，或者做一些有限的清理。那这样的话呢，共和党方面就共和党的 DOJ 哈，司法部就开始起诉他们。那所以我的问题就是说，那如果这些民主党的州他坚决就不按照你这个来办，那你司法部有什么办法？就是你有什么制衡他的手段？那汤姆就说呢，这个有可能，这或者说非常有可能会打官司的。打官司到法庭上，因为这是一个宪法当中是值得争论的一个问题啊。那因为宪法就是把选举权是给各州的，所以州就可以说这是我的权利范围，你就是不用你管，这不是你的范围，那这就会打官司。打官司呢，他说有一些法官可能会，sorry，可能会站在民主党的州这边，有一些法官可能会站在这个共和党的站在这个 DOJ 这个方面，所以但是这个有可能是打官司，那这个官司都有可能去打到最高法院。好，那我的问题就是说，那如果最高法院这个判了，就是川普的 DOJ 赢了，就是联邦的这个司法部有这个权利要求每一个州来清理你的州的选民的名册，呃，在这个州权不受影响的情况下，那民主党的这个州仍然不遵守最高法院的这个裁决，那有什么制衡力量？还是一个制衡力量的问题？因为我们所谈法律都是在一个 law and order 的这个框架里，法律跟这个正义这个框架里面。秩序的框架里在谈，可是我们看得很清楚，就这个民主党，特别是这个极左派，他根本不遵守这个框架，那有什么用？那汤姆就是说呢，那如果他是这个情况的话呢，如果最高法院判对这个 DOJ 有利的话，那川普的这个就是政府就可以去用一些经济的手段或者其他的手段来强迫这个州执行最高法院的一个指令。所以这是我们所希望看到的。那么，另外对2026的选举会不会有影响呢？他们说应该就是，如果这个事情能够在2026年选举之前，有一个比较明确的结论的话，那当然会对于2026的选举是有利的啊。所谓明确的结论，就是对司法部有这样的一个就是最高法院那个判决是倾向司法部的。So, what do you think about this um, um, constitution question? Do you think DOJ has the right to asking for the voter name list?
well, like I said, the argument on behalf of DOJ is that even though the Constitution gives the states
Right,
control over how to conduct elections,
right.
the Constitution also gives DOJ the ability to say, wait a minute, we're representing U.S. citizens whose constitutional rights may be deprived by
Okay.
the way the state conducts it.
Uh,
So the Civil Rights Division of the
mm,
Department of Justice, as I said,
mhm,
is run by somebody I think is just fantastic,
right.
Harmeet Dillon.
Dylan, right.
She's already said that pretty much are not going to get away with that. She's going to protect the civil liberties of American citizens and prevent the states from violating the rights of the people.
Sure, sure. So this is a very good example of a checking and balance. This is
Right.
a balance here,
Right.
right? Yeah. 所以最后就问 Tom 啊，这个很重要的一个概念哈。Yeah. So I just like to translate to our audience. This is a very important concept of American system.
I
所以
agree.
Yeah，一个非常重要的一个平衡概念啊，就是说，我问 Tom，就是你是怎么看的这个问题？这个到底应该是州权还是应该是联邦的权利？那 Tom 就说，实际上这个事情呢，就是虽然这个宪法是给了州权把这个选举权给州权，但是宪法同时也给了联邦来保护民众民权的这样的一个权利和义务。那现在呢，也就是司法部的副部长，他叫 Dylan 哈，他是非常棒的一个人，那他就在主持这个工作，就是起诉的这个工作。那他就是联邦是有权来代表每一个美国人来实践他的这个权利的人权和民权。那我们这个选票权就是我们那个非常非常大的一个民权。那如果这个选票权落在各州，他没有把这个选举名单给就是清理的话，那实际上就损害了我们每一个人的这个基本的人权，就是你把我的选票偷了，或者你把我的这个合法选票稀释了，所以我在这方面的人权就受到了影响和破坏。那司法部就可以从这个角度，从联邦的角度呢，来抑制这个州滥用权力以后导致到对州里面的公民的人权和民权的一个伤害。所以这是非常好的美国的这个 balance 这个平衡就在这个地方。好，Yeah，thank you so much, Tom. You should be a professor of Constitution. Yeah, I always think the Constitution is the most and the most smart law in the earth.
Yeah, keep in mind that it's always not always clear cut
Right.
because, theoretically, the
Hmm.
justices on the Supreme Court
Hmm.
are learned legal scholars, and yet how many decisions are 5-4,
Hmm. Yeah.
or 6-3 aren't unanimous. So uh, even they can disagree.
Hmm.
And, that's why a lot of these questions don't get answered until the case goes to the Supreme Court
Right.
and they
Right.
have a chance to rule on, and then that changes depending on their philosophy at the time.
Hmm.
Uh, but there's a lot at stake with these elections, and I think we've not had this in the past,
Hmm.
partially because of the Democrats going after Trump and his supporters and prosecuting them
Hmm.
uh, for questioning the results of elections and questioning the methodology that was used. So these are important questions, and they're not going to always be clear cut.
Right. It's pretty philosophical because maybe the law is very clear cut, but people are not.
Right.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. 所以呀，我们在谈到这个哲学问题啊，就是说一定要记住，有的时候很多东西并不是一个黑白很分明的一个东西。那他说，就像最高法院，比如他的大法官，那都是最顶级的这个法律学者。可是你看到他们判案的很多这个判案的一个结果，你从这个当中也可以看出来，很多东西是不是这个 clear cut 的哈？那我们就说这是一种有点一个哲学问题啊，因为这个法律有可能是十分清晰的哈。那但是执行法律的人是一个什么样的一个状况？他的一个思想，他的一个情感，他的一个意识形态，会决定这个法律最后呈现出来的这个样子。这是因为我觉得他很了解这个美国的这 Constitution 宪法，所以推举他做宪法教授。Okay, thank you so much, Tom. And I think this is so important for us to know, especially the first generation of American people from the other system, the country system, to understand the Constitution, to understand the whole philosophy behind that, which is really, yeah, precious.
Right. I
Yeah,
agree.
thank you. Thank you so much, and a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. My
Here.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, Tom.
Bye bye.
Thank you.